Tony Stewart dropped a bombshell on NASCAR this week and leaked more about his plan and reasons to depart NASCAR at the end of the 2024 season. Stewart-Haas Racing closed its doors after 16 seasons due to difficulties in getting funding as a four-car race team. But he wasn't the only one, as Kyle Busch also chipped in on the scandals surrounding NASCAR and the France family. Stewart's departure from the sport comes at a time when there is concern among NASCAR and its teams about the sport's future. 23 Stewart-Haas Racing and Front Row Motorsports, who refused to sign NASCAR's final charter proposal at Atlanta Motor Speedway in September, filed a joint antitrust lawsuit against the sanctioning body and CEO Jim France earlier this month, accusing NASCAR and France of unlawful monopolization of premier stock car racing in order to enrich themselves at the expense of the premier stock car racing teams. Denny Hamlin, co-owner of 23 Stewart-Haas, understands Stewart's reasons for leaving, which are similar to why he has been so vocal in recent years about the direction of the sport. Some of those comments, to give context, were about sponsorship, where there were so many Fortune 500 companies that they couldn't find a car to get on, Hamlin said on Monday's Actions Detrimental podcast. There were so many opportunities back then, and we're talking 10, 15 years ago, before the other sports started putting patches on their uniforms and helmets and things like that. If you have some sponsorship media dollars you want to spend in your company, there's so many different avenues you can use it for now. Facebook ads weren't a thing, and Instagram, so there's a lot of different things you can use to target your audience. NASCAR has a really strong core fan base that supports the sponsors that participate in it, so there's still lots of great value there. But what Tony is saying is that if you don't have a manufacturer deal, which they ended up losing based off of performance, and then you start to lose sponsors, then it's going downhill. You're not going to be able to sustain, and it's why it's very difficult. And he brings this up. I don't have a Penske truck rental. I don't have Hendrick Automotive to be able to sponsor my cars. You see many sponsors on my race cars when you used to see one. It's just very difficult in this landscape, and why it's so critical for the race teams to be able to financially make it without tens of millions of dollars in sponsorship. But that's becoming harder and harder, especially when we compete with each other for that sponsorship, and we have to compete against the sanctioning body. NASCAR will be the first one to call up a potential NASCAR sponsor to be like, hey, sponsor us. That just makes it very hard to sustain in this sport, which is why we've seen so many owners go. SHR was formerly one of NASCAR's most successful teams. Stewart's presence in 2009 lent legitimacy to the group. His winning the Cup Series victory in 2011 showed that they will be a player for many years. Kevin Harvick joined the team in 2014 and earned his first career championship that year. SHR has won 70 races in 16 seasons, with Stewart and Harvick leading the charge. However, faced with sponsorship and manufacturer support issues, Stewart made the difficult choice to exit NASCAR ownership, leaving almost 300 staff with uncertain futures. Stewart concluded that the abuse he experienced online and on social media was very unjust. The bashing I got online and on social media was very unjust through the process, Stewart told Harvick on his Happy Hour podcast. It's easy to sit on your ass, on a chair, on your couch in your mom's house, and sit there and tell us how we're doing it wrong, but nobody can seem to sit there and come in on Monday morning and tell us how to do it right. I feel like our group did a great job of taking care of our people the best that we could, and with the right intentions and with the attitude of our employees came first. And that has been the focus this year, making sure that we do everything to take care of our employees in a season that's a transition year for everybody. Ultimately, SHR lacked lasting strength in NASCAR. Hamlin stated that this is only assured for teams like Penske and Hendrick. The only people who have the staying power in our sport for forever and ever are Penske and Hendrick, Hamlin said. It's probably why they win the bulk of the races. Gibbs you can definitely throw in there as well, but they're the only ones who can sustain their sponsorship because the B2B they leverage to get that sponsorship. No one else really has the ability to do that, which makes everyone so fragile and makes it so hard to invest, which makes it hard to perform. It's just a snowball that happens in this business that makes it extremely difficult. Tony, obviously, has been looking at things from the outside and is like, this is a good time for me to check out. He's been vocal over the last few years as an owner and even more so as a driver back in the day about change. He was me before me. Fans just embraced it a little differently. But we definitely need a change. Hamlin, Stewart, and Harvick weren't the only ones talking about NASCAR this week, as Kyle Busch also chipped in 2 weeks before the finale. He said he is keeping an eye on 23 Stewart-Haas Racing and Front Row Motorsports' combined antitrust action against NASCAR and CEO Jim France, which was filed in federal court in North Carolina earlier this month. But he also dropped the bombshell saying he was the one that started all the drama. Busch is no stranger to charter drama. Just over 2 years ago, the 39-year-old lost his seat with Joe Gibbs Racing after longtime sponsor M&M's backed out. He subsequently joined Stewart-Haas Racing, which he believes sparked the charter issue between NASCAR and its teams. "I was sort of the catalyst to this process of what's going on in the charter agreements," Busch said. "When I was with Joe Gibbs Racing, we lost our main sponsor M&M's as they pulled out of the sport, and I was left without a job because we couldn't find a replacement sponsor." Teams have spent the previous 2 years negotiating an extension to the original 2016 charter agreement, which was set to expire on December 31st. Teams demanded permanent charters and a higher share of TV income. Charters in the present concept are not permanent franchises, as they are in other professional sports leagues. Teams can lose their charters if they perform poorly on the track or do not field their cars on a consistent basis. As a result, most racing teams lose money each year. Busch feels that clubs should receive more cash, like other sports in the United States do. "Other sports are healthy," Busch explained. "They're a lot healthier than ours. NASCAR is a great family sport, and we have these opportunities of supporting one another at a lot of times and through a lot of good and a lot of bad," he said. "But as most families do, sometimes they fight." Kyle Busch had a difficult 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season, but things look brighter for him and Stewart-Haas Racing in 2025. Busch spoke exclusively with On3 last week about his aspirations for next year with Stewart-Haas Racing. "We've actually kind of already been working on that a little bit," Busch said. "We have run stronger since the Olympic break that we've had this year. Our team has come out after that break with a couple different faces on it and new players and places that have made us a little stronger. We have had better runs. And so that's been a big part of what we've been doing already that we can do. And then, of course, also through the off-season, we've got some new people that are joining our team and our organization at Stewart-Haas Racing from other organizations or from Stewart-Haas Racing, which is closing down at the end of the year. There were some really good folks over there that have taken positions with us, so we're excited to get them on board and get them in and start the process." Busch has yet to win a race this season and has not finished in the top 10 since finishing 7th at Atlanta Motor Speedway prior to the playoffs. However, the two-time Cup Series winner had several great takeaways from this season. "I would say we've definitely shown some good strength at some racetracks this year that we've been in position to win," Busch explained. "We had a second at Daytona, we had a second at Darlington, we were leading the race in the final stages at Kansas. We should have won that one. I messed up. So Vegas earlier this year we were leading a lot of laps and running up front there, so there's been some good moments of where we had strengths. A lot of the downtimes or the races that we weren't as strong, we didn't get as good of finishes as we wanted to. So we know that we've got some things that we can work on this winter in order to get ourselves a lot better for next year." What do you think? Will Busch be able to perform next year? And what about those bombshells? Could Stewart and Busch really be the instigators to all of this drama right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.